VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Well, thank you, Gordon Morris, and welcome to Crosstalk. It's our privilege to have you join us today, and after everyone has recovered from the Memorial Day holiday, and I was out on the highway driving many miles, but glad to be back here all in one piece and feeling a bit normal after being on the road a bit. Want to give you a little perspective as to our visit today. Many of us have heard the story, the prodigal son. In fact, the word prodigal is one that describes that wayward son. How many times could that word prodigal describe us in our service to the Lord or our relationship to Him? But today we have a very wonderful privilege. With us is Dr. John MacArthur, who is the founder of Grace to You, the program which touches tens of thousands of people every day. And Dr. MacArthur was with us some months ago and shared the message. In fact, it was the message which ultimately became the launching pad for a book, and we're going to be talking about that today. Dr. MacArthur is the author of over 150 books, including many bestsellers, The Truth War, 12 Ordinary Men, 12 Extraordinary Women, The Gospel According to Jesus, The Second Coming, Ashamed of the Gospel, and the MacArthur Study Bible. We could go on more. They've sold over 7 million copies around the world. He is, of course, the pastor-teacher of Grace Community Church in Sun Valley, California. And we say welcome, Dr. John MacArthur. Nice to have you with us today.
Well, Vic, it's a pleasure to be with you. We're so thankful for your faithfulness and your ministry, and it was a real delight to be there for that rally. And you're right, that message is what I gave, and it spurred me on to put it in a book.
Well, we are so grateful to have you with us today. And, of course, the word prodigal, nobody wants to identify with that. I mean, we're all good guys, of course. But from the title, we can tell that your new book is about Jesus' parable of the prodigal son. Now, why do you think this is such an often quoted and well-known Bible story?
Well, I think it's just such a wonderful, beautiful message. Everybody can understand a wayward child. Everybody can understand a forgiving, loving, reconciling father. That's something that all human hearts comprehend. Parents have been disappointed by their kids. They've been ravaged by the choices their kids make, and everybody understands what it would be like to have a child come back home and be embraced and be loved. But that's what's made it such a beautiful story. That's why Shakespeare used it. That's why Hank Williams wrote a song about it. Ralph Waldo Emerson said it's the greatest short story ever written. Dickens said the same thing. It's well known because of the endearing nature of a returning child who's forgiven and embraced in the family. But that's not the whole story, and that's kind of why I wrote the book.
Well, I have seen a graphic portrayal of the prodigal son. I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about, but you see this elderly father with his arms wrapped around you can only see the son from the backside, but the tears in his father's eyes. And what a moving thing this is. Of course, only those who have sons recognize, of course, that dear, warm fellowship between dads and sons. But what a shocker it was to have a son come up and say, "Dad, I can't wait for you to die. Give me my stuff now."
Yeah, and if you're one of the things you do when you teach the Bible, if you're going to get at the message of the Bible, is you understand that the Bible always means what it meant when it was written. So you got to go back and get into the context of when it was written. That's when its meaning is permanently, everlastingly established. And if you go back into that culture, it's a shame-honor culture. A father who had a son who did that would be shamed. As shameful as the son was, the fact that the father gave him the inheritance would make the father appear to be more shameful. And then the fact that the father would embrace him, reconcile with him, kiss him, take him back, restore him, that would even be more shameful, because in that culture, a son who shamed father like that would have to earn his way back. He'd have to earn restitution, earn back the fortune he had wasted, and then maybe his father would accept him. So the thing that makes the story so amazing is it just blasts the sensibilities of people who were so aware of shame and honor, pursuing what was honorable and avoiding what was shameful. So that's why grace is so powerful in the story, because Jesus is telling the story to the Pharisees, and they see a father who is shameful for letting his son have his estate. Then they see him even more shameful for forgiving him, embracing him, kissing him, and throwing a party for him. That's not how legalism works. You've got to earn your way back. And they had no category for grace.
And it seemed that the son was anticipating that, because he was saying that I am no more worthy to be called your son, make me a hired servant.
There's no question about it. The picture is absolutely beautiful. You have a picture of repentance. He's in the pigsty. He's going to die. He is deeply sorry for his life. But the second component is he knows his father to be a kind man. He knows him to be a forgiving man. He knows him to be a generous man, because he says his hired servants have more than enough. He overpays the people who work for him. So he knows he's generous and kind, and that's the picture of the sinner who on the one hand knows he's sinful, knows he's going to die, can go nowhere, but learns that or knows that there is one who has all the resources, who is good, who is kind, who is forgiving, and he goes to him. And that's what the sinner did. That's what the prodigal did. And he said, look, I don't deserve it. He understood grace.
You know, I was thinking about our visit today, the other day, as we were thinking about what it must have been like. Of course, the Bible says that the prodigal would fain have filled his belly with the husks that the swine did eat. But today in society, you find, there are prodigals today, young people and older people as well, who have started in eating those husks and all of a sudden find how putrid and how terrible. Yeah. I remember as a kid, I used to watch my Uncle Harry come and slop the pigs. And the big old sow pig would see him coming, would squeal with delight and throw itself into the pig trough, and Harry would ultimately dump this gloppy milk and sour stuff all over the pig. And the pig was just having the greatest time of their life, but the stench was so bad you could hardly stand near it. And, the recognition of the stench and the recognition of the filth is something that, in some cases, people have gotten so used to it that they don't know any better.
Yeah, that's a great observation, Vic. I think that's where reconciliation with God starts. When you do understand that your environment is a stench, when you do understand that it is, as Paul called it, dung. All the things that were important to him were dung, and for him, in his case, they were religious things.
Yeah.
But that's where the sinner has to start. You have to start with recognizing this is not the best. This is the absolute worst, and that it leads to death. I mean, he knew that in the story, the prodigal is going to die because he can't digest the husks that he's trying to eat, and it's a famine, and he's going to die. And he remembers there's only one who can rescue him. And I think that's what, in many ways, Vic, is missing from contemporary evangelism, is giving the sinner full understanding of his condition. The
lostness, yeah.
The lostness. I mean, how can you talk about salvation until you talk about being lost? We've often said that. There are people who are trying to get saved before they know they're lost, trying to feel good before they feel bad. The message of the gospel, of course, is good news, but the good news only makes sense to somebody who is under the full weight of the bad news.
The understanding that we as lawbreakers against God's law are guilty of something. It's not just joining the God Club.
Well, that's absolutely right. And one way to look at it that I think might stun people is that God, in His grace, saves sinners from Himself. In other words, when you ask the question, saved from what? You want to be saved. Saved from what? The answer is saved from whom? Saved from God. Fear Him who destroys both soul and body in hell. And so it is God who, in His grace, provides forgiveness and salvation from His own wrath. But people need to understand the sinfulness of sin, the reality of divine wrath, eternal condemnation and hell before the good news really is good news.
You preached a series on this subject at Grace Community Church. What was the response, and what was it about the message that caused such a stir?
I've been here 40 years preaching, and in all the series that I've done, all those 40 years, nothing had the effect that this did. I didn't anticipate that, but I did 5 weeks on it, and each sermon was an hour, and I unfolded all the details, and the people became, they got to know the younger son, they got to know the older brother, they got to know the father, and by the time we came to the final Sunday, the attendance was just booming. People wanted to know. It was like a mini-series, you know. It was exciting, and we came to the end of the story. I'll never forget it. When I told how the story ends,